boy, my mum was very strict, and I lived in sort of abject fear and admiration of her. She was upper middle class British. She'd grown up as a small girl during the Blitz, with dogfights going on above her head, and being sort of removed out to the countryside and taken away from her family, but basically brought up in upper middle class, very well schooled, very fluent in Latin and Greek and the classics, and would compose poetry in Latin and what have you, but was very religious. But her mother was a very harsh kind of woman, and when we were kids, Mum was first of all sort of in a state of abhorrence again that we were in Australia, and we were living way out on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and when we were saying grace before, when Dad was saying grace before dinner, we'd all be like this, eyes closed, but we'd be peeking, and Mum would look up and she'd stare across at Jane, and Jane would have her eyes open, and she would just go, Jane! And Jane would just go, like into the back of the wall, like totally overdoing it, like she was stuck to the wall by the force of Mum's, and I would just be cracking up laughing. But anyway, Mum, I love her. That's the prelude to all this. But there's no doubt that when I was in high school over in Australia, you can opt to leave at year 10 and go and take up a trade. And my mum was sort of saying perhaps I should be considering that because I didn't have the brains for years 11 and 12, high school. And I knew she was wrong because I knew I was intelligent. I always had that with me. But basically, even when I went on to high school, she'd just go, you're only sort of an average, your sister's very intelligent, but you're only average intelligence, maybe a bit below. But the thing is, you're very disciplined and you do try hard. So she was a bit balanced, but she'd be pretty, she'd come down hard on you. And towards the end of her, before the crash 5 years ago, the car crash that has put her where she is now, she would come in from the car, having gone to town to do the shopping 40 minutes away on a gravel road through the bush, and she'd come in like hunched over like this, walking, like not just a hunch back, but like fully hunched over, and
you're walking out of the light.
I'd be there watching the cricket or something, and Mum would come in just huffing and puffing, and I'd go, do you want some help, Mum? And she'd be like, oh, would you mind? And you just like, there was this whole martyr thing. And also she was, I have to say, I think she was a bona fide hypochondriac, and always had ailments of one form or the other, and even had diabetes and was being treated for that. But anyway, it turned out that after her accident, which basically fried a whole hemisphere of her brain, all of that side of it, to do with like her past ills and woes and sicknesses and what have you, just was, she didn't have a memory of it. And Jane and I would say, and it actually turned out that she didn't even have diabetes at all. And so Jane and I talked, my sister, and we talked, and we were like, well, we're not going to tell her that she had diabetes before, like, she's fine. and the part of Mum's brain that remained is in the present and short term. Like, she knows who I am, but she might not remember my name, and she'll call me her brother or something like that. But she knows I'm Bruce. And the thing is, with her short-term memory, even though with her long-term memory, that's very good. Her short-term memory is very poor. I beg your pardon. It's the other way around. So, like, with a long-term memory, I can just say to Mum, oh, Mum, Do you remember that poem by Hilaire Belloc about the balloon that burst? And she'd go, oh, oh, oh. And I just had to say the first line, like, when George's grandmama was told that George's had been as good as gold, and she'd just pick it up from there and she'd just say it all the way through. She promised in the afternoon to buy him an immense balloon, and so she did. But when it came, it got into the candle flame, and being at the dangerous sort, it went off with a loud retort. The lights went out, the windows broke, the room was filled with reeking smoke, on and on and on. So my mum could sort of say these 10-page poems. She can still say them now. And whenever you see her, she's just it's the part of her that was there when we were children, which was really playful and fun and happy and engaging and warm. And you didn't really see it up until the crash, you know. But now that's all there is. And so she's only ever positive, she's happy, and there we have it.
Well, that's wonderful. Wonderful.